Welcome back to Sharpen the Point. We are continuing our look at futures bets, a little stock option reporting, little news and notes action of things I'm picking up on before we head into the start of the regular season in a couple weeks and we really start diving in to our DFS play where the money is made for me. Starting out, Clemson. A lot of question marks at the quarterback position. Chris Vezina is likely to take over from Cade Klubnik, although he is in somewhat of a quarterback battle with Tate Reynolds. I would expect Vezina to come out on top, given his experience. He did play really well in that SMU game overall. Lack of mobility by comparison to what Klubnik offered. I, I think there is a legitimate possibility you could see a Kelly Bryant situation where Vizina starts early in the season and ends up getting replaced depending on how the start of that regular season goes. I do love the weapons around him. Do have some question marks with the offensive line to an extent, but the ACC competition overall is relatively weak. But getting into these guys, I mean, you got Gideon Davidson. He sounds like he's going to be the workhorse running back, a guy that I'm willing to buy into. I think he's talented out of the backfield and at running with the football. Just didn't get to show it necessarily last year with them having a bell cow there. But we're accustomed to, the Phil Moffas of the world that are going to be able to handle the rock and tote it a bunch. Davidson falls right in line with that. I expect him to have a very good season overall. And then on the outside, it's just loaded. You get my favorite of the bunch, Bryant Wesco. Hopefully he's fully recovered from the neck issue. I was high on him going into that first year for him, and last year liked him a good bit. He did start out hot, got banged up. I mean, sans the North Carolina game, he was the best wide receiver in the LSU game. North Carolina, he struggled a little bit, but otherwise, like BC, nice, nasty game. Georgia Tech, great game. Syracuse, great game. Troy, great game. So I think if he's back and fully healthy, he should be the wide receiver one, but it's a 1A, 1B situation because TJ Moore is absolutely fully talented. Did not explode the way you would hope with Wesco out, but he did perform very well in that Vizina game against SMU with 5 for 124 and 2. So he is a guy that is more than capable of showing up. He just did not put up the numbers overall without Wesco late in the season that I would have hoped to have seen for me to put him ahead of Bryant Wesco long term. Moving over to the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, I have a ton of concerns here. I am low on them based on the explosiveness capability of the offense. Now that Haynes King is gone, I'm not exactly the biggest Alberto Mendoza fan. Just because you have the last name doesn't mean you're great. I am right in line with their win total. I have them projected at 6. Their win total 6.5. I'm not really going to touch that. So, I'm just kind of out there. I think it's going to end up being a heavy run-based team going with a huge upgrade at running back, actually, in my opinion, with Justice Haynes coming in. Had a great year at Michigan. He struggled to stay healthy a little bit, but 100 yards in basically every game, multiple touchdowns a lot of the way. 10 touchdowns on that short bit of a season is highly impressive. Game-breaking ability. He will be an upgrade at running back spot for Jamal Haynes. And sharing the backfield with him again will be Malachi Hausley. I thought he played pretty well. He ended up kind of being more of the 1A in that situation, if you don't count Haynes King, because Haynes King was the 1A and the 1B. But Hausley played better than Jamal Haynes did, which was a shocker to an extent. But I think it's going to be Justice Haynes, very clearly the number one option there. A guy that I am high on that I want to touch on is Jalen Cooper out of SMU. Started the year really well and then didn't really get the playing time, mainly because when Jordan Hudson was healthy, it was going to be that was his spot, right? So as long as Hudson was on the field, Cooper wasn't going to get much run. He did get run. I know I played him at min price in that Baylor game, 2 for 89 and one, which worked out great. That was a game that Hudson missed. So he ended up getting extra run. Hudson staying healthy really capped his upside, but I would expect him to step into a much larger role this season and a guy that I'm willing to buy into who has potential to be a Rashee Rice guy in this system. He was getting run as a true freshman. So big deal there. On the downside, one of the most talented backs in the country, in my opinion, Isaac Brown. He destroyed JMU with that 78-yard run. That game was very tight last year. He's very good. He just can't stay on the field, man. Like, played great in the bowl game, played great against Virginia Tech, finished the year really strong. 200-yard game on 14 carries against BC. Might be able to do that again if he can ever see the field. He's been highly limited to start camp, and he has a big injury history. Some strange rumors coming out, but I'm not going to speculate on those. I just hope he plays. If he doesn't, you got Keywan Brown, who's likely to be the top option behind him, but we're hoping Isaac Brown is on the field. Now, diving into their wide receivers, because I think this is an interesting thing. Y'all know that Trayshawn Hurry is a channel favorite of mine, a guy that I hoped would be able to take the next step. He is going to start, but flanking him is going to be LaWayne McCoy, who's getting a ton of camp buzz, a guy that was at Florida State, I believe, and moves over to Louisville. He's getting vibes, some kind of soft comparison to Ja'Cory Brooks when he moved over from Alabama. I think he ends up being the guy on the outside that is the number one more than likely, a guy that I'm willing to kind of buy early and hopefully I'm ahead of the game because I think most of the money in the early salary is going to go towards Trey Richardson, who had a very strong close last year for Vanderbilt. 100 yards in 3 out of his last 4, 6 touchdowns in his last 4 games. Performed really well there, was Vanderbilt's number one option. He's going to be in the slot and taking over for Colin Lacey. I had high hopes for Colin Lacey when he got there. He didn't necessarily deliver what I had hoped. It seemed to be more Chris Bell on the outside, playing that David Bell, Charlie Jones role, and Rondale Moore, because they kind of were more on the outside. I know Rondale Moore was more of a slot-capable guy, but Charlie Jones, similar aspect from Purdue with Braum there. But they ended up playing on the outside, and Bell and Brooks ended up getting run. So that's where the LaWayne McCoy stuff is kind of coming from, and thinking that an outside wide receiver is going to continue to be the top option in this offense. Now, at UVA, we had a solid wide receiver last year in Trell Harris, who had moved up from the MAC. We've got a UMass wide receiver who actually I played some last year. Definitely did play him in that Temple game. Jaquan Gibson. He seems like the top option. He's getting a ton of buzz here. I think he is a guy that we're going to need to keep an eye on. Is a guy that we might want to play early in that NC State game potentially. I think NC State's a little lacking on the defensive side of the football by comparison. That has a little bit more of a shootout potential. So he's a guy that is a reception merchant. I mean, 5 or more catches in every game a year ago. PPR-wise, that you got to love that. I think he takes in the what was the slot receiver? He went from UConn to JMU to UVA. Anyway, I think it's Cam something. I think he takes that spot over, ends up getting a ton of yardage, and is a guy that early in the season we're going to want to play. I'm not touching on Miami for a reason. I think they're the class of the field here in the ACC. They should just mow through everybody. I think Mensa's a legitimate Heisman candidate. Has two of the most talented wide receivers. I was a big Barcate guy before last year. That proved out very well. Malachi Tony, I still think he might lock that top end gear. I know that seems crazy, but I've seen enough instances of him not being able to hit that second gear in between the safeties to pull away, specifically that SMU game. That I do have some concerns there. I thought like he delivered more on volume, almost like a Jacob DeJesus, but more explosive. So curious about that one in the long run. But moving into the future bets, and speaking of Jacob DeJesus' former team, we have Cal Golden Bears, who have now gotten a ton of steam, absolute boatload of steam. I do like them against UCLA. I think long term, Tosh Lupoy, you get JKS in there. We're going to talk about him in a second. I like the way the schedule plays out. UCLA, I feel good about them. I feel good on them against Syracuse, even though I don't like the road trip to Syracuse. But I feel like early in the season that works out. Wagner, easy win. I think at home against Clemson, fun game. Fun game. That might be the end of the Vizina era potentially. Could be that game. But I don't know that you really want to start a freshman against Miami. It's likelier that Vizina makes it through the first five, and we'll see. At UNLV, tough non-con game. I think UNLV can score points, but I'm worried about the quarterback situation right now. A lot of stuff that Jackson Arnold is have to be in competition with Alex Orji. That's a problem. Virginia Tech, I think, is improved. I don't know that I like Virginia Tech, though, traveling to the West Coast. I think the road trip stuff is what helps them. Really, SMU is the team I'm most worried about on this schedule, and at NC State back to back. So those are two games that I do have some concerns there. But with a 6.5 win total, I got them projected at 8. I ended up taking a unit on the over 6.5 at plus 112. I believe this has gotten some steam. Reasons for that over. JKS is one of the most talented quarterbacks in this conference. It's hard to argue it. He's right there with a Mensa, we'll say, a guy that should end up being, he's heavily recruited. They spent a ton to be able to keep him. As long as they keep him there, they should have a very good floor. He needs to limit the sacks. That was a big deal for him last year, as those negative plays. But we've seen he could just chuck it around the yard. I think his wide receiver crew is much better, which is why we need to delve into that. I think they upgraded massively over what they had a year ago with DeJesus and Tron Grisell. Ian Strong at 6'4" is an absolute target for JKS. He had his moments a year ago. There was a number of games where I was flip-flopping between Ian Strong, KJ Duff at Rutgers. I would have loved to have seen those two stay together and be able to have Ian Strong, KJ Duff, and Dylan Lonergan as a trio. But him going to Cal gives me a ton of confidence that JKS is going to be able to find him, and he's an improved Tron Grisell on the outside. I love the tight end pairing with Mason Minnie and Dorian Thomas. And then you add in the upside that is Chase Hendricks, who just put on a show in the MAC. Multiple 100-yard games, was ripping off 8 to 10 catches a number of times early in the season. You got to remember, late in the year, these MAC games, they're 10 degrees outside. It's freezing. They don't throw the football. They run it all kinds, and that's it. It was Parker Navarro just kind of steaming downhill with Sia Bangura. Hendricks was the receiving offense for this team. So I think he can step in immediately and be a monster situation for JKS. And they needed a run game. I thought Kendrick Raphael was underwhelming, and I don't love the move for Raphael going to SMU. I think he's probably an upgrade on TJ Harden and what the ghost of TJ Harden was. I really like Adam Muhammad. I thought he should take over that Washington backfield for Jonah Coleman now that he's gone. And inexplicably, he kind of left and went to Cal. I think Cal probably paid up to get him. So I think Muhammad ends up being the best back we've seen at Cal since Jaden Ott when he won Player of the Year. I understand Jaden Ott stunk once he left Cal that the second time. It was injuries. He just never regained form, but he was once the ACC Player of the Year. Pretty certain of that. If not, he was definitely the first team All ACC running back. And Muhammad is very good when he would spell Jonah Coleman. Had a 100-yard game against Oregon, 100-yard game against UCLA towards the end of the season. I really do think that this is a guy that we're going to want to buy into and play early. And I wonder what his pricing will be in that UCLA opener as everybody starts to look at the pass game. I think JKS will be in play, but I'm going to have plenty of Adam Muhammad. I think he's just a very talented back, and I love this offense overall. Question is going to be is how much can Cal play defensively? They might end up in some shootouts, but I'm willing to play those shootouts. So we shall see, but I think Cal's getting a ton of steam here. So if the line's moved to minus money, I am probably out. I like the value at the plus money on the 6.5. Next team, Bill Belichick. I'm not trusting this. Any team that's got Billy Edwards, I don't trust because I love Billy Edwards. Thought he was great when he was at Maryland, but he just can't stay healthy. He's now the quarterback 2, allegedly running with the 2s. So I just don't trust this offense. I don't trust what Bill's doing. I hear you. They got a bunch of stuff going on with Petrino there. Maybe they have some more offense. Maybe the defense can hold up. I don't love the schedule, though. So I got 1 unit on the under 4.5. I do think like East Tennessee is probably a easy win, but does the team quit if they're likely 1-4 heading into Duke at Duke? I think they're a dog to Duke. I think it's a toss-up game with Syracuse. Now Syracuse did a really good job. Their number one problem was clearly a backup quarterback situation. Like if they have Angeli, but I think they did a good job of replacing it by going and getting the Kennesaw kid. And I think he's serviceable enough that they can win games with him. At UConn, I feel decent about him. But I still think that only gets me to 3. Like, I'm not going to favor North Carolina at Virginia, Louisville, Miami, Notre Dame, Clemson. So that's 5 games, and TCU. So that's 6. That's already 6 games that I feel pretty confident that they're not winning. At Pitt, I think Pitt's got some defensive issues, but they're going to be able to score at will with the combination of Cade Bell and Mason Heinchel. Heinzel's probably the 3rd best quarterback in the conference, more than likely. So I don't really want to favor him there. I'm really just looking at the NC State and Duke games, maybe Syracuse, But, like, let's just give them Syracuse. Let's give them UConn, and let's give them East Tennessee. So that's 3. Outside of that, man, like at Duke and NC State, they're going to have to get just to get to 4. So I will take that under 4.5 for plus 118 with a unit on it. And in fairness, I took a half unit on the all under of 3.5 at plus 250. So if things go to heck in a handbasket, I think under 3.5 at 3 is in play. It's the haves and have-nots in the ACC. I think it's a very top-heavy and bottom-heavy league. The bottom is very bad, namely Stanford. They're awful. Wake Forest. So I thought that Alonzo Barnett would have been the best fit here. I do think Ty Clark is a good back. He is getting in some competition here in the running back position. I think Ty Clark is good. I do think Carlos Hernandez is solid. At 5.5, though, I think they beat Akron. I think they likely beat Purdue, although I think that's a closer game at Purdue with their weaponry. They're getting better. Their coaching staff. There's 2 good coaching staffs, 2 bad programs, right? Purdue and Wake Forest. Very good coaches. No doubt about it. But Louisville, Miami, easy losses. I think they beat Stanford at home. So you're probably looking at, let's just say 3 there. NC State, probably going to be a tough one. At Cal, I'm not buying that. Virginia, probably a tough one. Merrimack, you get your fourth win more than likely. And then you're going to have to close with SMU, Georgia Tech, and Duke. I think they just get run on by Georgia Tech. And that's the concern there. And then Duke is more of a toss up. So I can buy 4 pretty easily if they get the Purdue game. So 5's in play with Duke. But at plus 115, I've probably got hedge options there. So I took the under 5.5 at plus 115 for 1 unit, knowing that likely they're probably a slight dog to Duke to end the year. Depending, I like Nate Shepard a lot. I don't like Walker Egan, but I trust Manny Diaz slightly more in that situation. But if they lose to Purdue, it's all. I mean, we're cashing the 115 like right out the gate at Purdue. So they got to take one of Duke or Purdue in order to get. Well, they have to cash both actually to get to 6. So I'm gonna take the under 5.5. I don't think Wake Forest goes bowling with this schedule. So wrapping up, I've got Cal over 6.5 plus 112. North Carolina under 4.5 plus 118 for 1 unit. The alt under on Carolina, saying that everything goes crazy for Bill, at 3.5 for plus 250. Although I do think Carolina could be an improved team and still go under the win total. And finally, Wake Forest under 5.5 for plus 115 for 1 unit.